What's up guys, welcome back to Fancy Goldfish Fanatics. Today we are going to be talking about whether you should import or buy your fish from your local goldfish store. So make sure you stay tuned to find out more. Hey Fanatics family, welcome back. As always, check out our links in the description. Make sure you check out our sponsors, Star Fisheries and Jimmy Goldfish. If you are a new customer at Jimmy Goldfish, you can get 12% off when you sign up to their website. So that is a completely free voucher for you to use. You can use 12% when you sign up to their website. So make sure you check that out down in the description. Now, this is a requested video. I have done this video probably just over a year ago, whether you should be importing your fancy goldfish or you should purchase them from a local shop. Now, personally, I would say for 99% of hobbyists, the best place to get your fancy goldfish is your local shop, your local dealer, and your local fancy goldfish specialist. Because importing is very, very niche, and it is only for, I would say, really experienced aquarists, because there is quite a lot of things that can go wrong, and it also is very expensive. So let me talk to you a little bit more about what is importing fancy goldfish before we go into the positives and the negatives. Now, all of the fish, or the majority of goldfish in the UK, are imported from overseas, whether that's coming from China, Thailand, Indonesia. There are so many different countries now that breed fancy goldfish. Obviously, we have our UK breeders as well, but I would say the majority of stock comes through the import process. This is where your dealer or your shop has purchased those fish online, and they are then shipped from that country of destination into the UK, and then they go and collect them from the airport, or they have them then delivered to their shop. Now, obviously, these shops are going to be buying these goldfish for quite a bit cheaper than you're going to be paying for them, but obviously they do have quite a few pros and cons to doing that. So now let's say your shop has imported a few boxes of fancy goldfish. They will then need to quarantine those fish, and that is being that all fish make it. Because, for instance, if half of the box of fish die, that is on the shop to take responsibility for that, and you as a customer are not paying for that. So that is a big negative, and potentially that is what can happen to many shops. There are many times full boxes of fish completely die in the shipping process. The shipping is delayed, they don't have enough oxygen, and unfortunately they pass away. And that happens on a day-to-day basis, not just with fancy goldfish, but with fish all across the world. So straight away, the shop is taking that risk whether those fish are going to survive or not. Then they have to put those fish through quarantine. They need to be treating them, feeding them, making sure they are free from parasites, making sure they haven't got any health problems or any issues before they can then release them and sell them to the general public. So they've got lots of overhead costs involved in treating those fish, making sure they're healthy, and then feeding them. Then if by the time that fish has flown from Asia, for example, all the way into the UK or to the United States, it has survived, it has gone through the quarantine process with no problems, then finally it goes on to sale for the general public. Now, obviously, with all businesses, they need to make a profit, because otherwise they would not be able to import these amazing fish for us at home. So obviously they are going to be putting quite a big markup on those fish. Well, big, I say, depending on how you look at it. They have so many overhead costs: electricity, staff, gas, rent. There are so many costs that have to be split all amongst these fish, as well as buying the fish themselves and the shipping process. Now, this brings me on to whether you should potentially transship these fish yourself. Now, I would say if you are in the market for very high quality, expensive, maybe larger style fish, but mostly on the high quality end, it doesn't really depend that much on size. Obviously, my Aranda that may or may not be in the shot of the camera are quite big fancy goldfish. They are 8 to 9 inches, about the size of my head. But then again, it doesn't matter too much on the size of the fish, it is more the quality of those fish. And this is where importing comes into play. Now, importing high quality fish is very risky for shops. Number one, because they have to have a client or a customer that is initially going to purchase them. And purchasing expensive fancy goldfish is an extremely niche hobby, so to say. It's like a normal general car company selling a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. There are not that many customers that have the budget to purchase one of those cars, and in your everyday second-hand car dealer, they may have 1 or 2 really expensive cars because it's much easier for them to sell the slightly cheaper cars and sell lots more of them. They're taking less risk if something goes wrong. If something goes wrong with an expensive car, it is a very expensive bill to repair it or restore it. The same with fancy goldfish. Expensive fancy goldfish, if you lose even 1 or 2 fish in a box of fish, it is completely destroyed all profit for a shop, which is why a lot of shops will not bring in and purchase these high quality fancy goldfish. And that is where potentially you may want to import fancy goldfish yourself. However, there are many positives and negatives to it. So let's say you've now decided, I want some really high quality fish. They are quite expensive to get in from my local dealer or my local shop because obviously they are taking that risk and they have to make a nice markup on those fish to be able to make it worth their while importing them and taking that risk. So let's say you want to import some high quality fish. What you will need to do is go to a transhipper. Now, there are not many of these in the UK, but you will need to find a suitable transhipper depending where you are in the world. Then they will charge you a flat rate per box. Generally, this varies quite a lot. I would say it varies from £400 to £600 just in shipping one large poly box. Now, you may get 20 2.5 to 3 inch fish in that box, or you may get 4 really big jumbo fish. So that cost then needs to be split between those fish to work out if it's viable for you to import them. Once you've found your transhipper and you know the shipping cost, then you can approach some fancy goldfish farms or some large-scale hobbyists in other countries that you want to import from. Now, please make sure that the sellers you are buying from are legitimate. I would say there's probably 50% legitimate companies out there and 50% that are scammers. And we get it very, very often on the Facebook group. Lots and lots of posts. I would say we get about 20 to 30 posts every single day that both myself and the rest of the moderators have to decline because they are 1, scammers, and 2, they are not legitimate companies and they will not send the fish even if they have them. So please be aware when purchasing those fish, make sure they are a legitimate company. Now, once you've found that company, you will need to purchase enough fish to fill that box. You cannot be purchasing 1 or 2 fish, and this is where transshipping can get expensive. Let's say, for example, and these numbers are completely random, they're not linked to any of my fish that I personally have or any fish that I have seen through the trade itself. But let's say you want to purchase 6 large ranchu, maybe 6 inches, 5 to 6 inches. So some large ranchu, and your box will hold around 6 of those fish. Now, let's say you're purchasing some really high quality examples. Generally, they are going to run you probably around 150 to 200 pounds per fish, and your average shop would be selling those fish for 400, 500, 600 pounds. So let's say you've bought those 6 fish and they are on average, let's say 200 pounds each. That means those fish that you've purchased are 1,200 pounds, which you need to send that money to the dealer or the breeder you're purchasing them from. Then you have to pay your shipping fee. Let's say that's 500 pounds. You can see how this gets really expensive and why the generalized shops do not want to be risking that amount of money on bringing fish in that could potentially die. And that brings me on to the second or another negative of transshipping. If those fish arrive and they are dead, generally that is it. You've lost your money, you're not getting it back. Some dealers and breeders overseas will give you a money back guarantee, but you must ask them before the fish are sent, because a lot of the time once those fish arrive to you, there is no guarantee. You may get a credit, but you've completely lost the money, and that is why a lot of these dealers in the UK and America will not import the super expensive fish, because they take up a lot of room in the box. They are very high quality, so they can have lots of problems when shipping, and it is simply not viable or economically viable for a business to do that. However, if your 6 ranch you come in, they are all alive, you acclimate them to your tank and release them, and they're super happy and healthy, then you have got a real good deal rather than buying them from the shops, and your fish are going to be worth a lot of money, and you have essentially saved yourself a lot of money. But obviously there are a lot of risks there. Now you may say, well, why did you import your Aranda? So I'm going to tell you, I imported my 3 Aranda because I could not find anywhere in the UK that could offer me this size of fish, this quality of fish that fit my budget. Now I'm not going to tell you how much I spent on my Aranda, because I did buy them through a company that I used to work for. However, they were generally much cheaper than I could have paid for them if I bought them from a dealer here in the UK. However, I did take the risk. They did have parasites. I could have risked having any swim bladder or buoyancy issues in the bag, potentially lost the fish, and I took that risk. Was that risk worth it? Yes, because the fish were absolutely fine. But if they didn't survive, I would have lost quite a bit of money, which wouldn't have been worth it, and I might as well have just purchased them from the shop, happy, healthy, quarantined, disease-free, and had them swimming around in the tank as well. So generally, I'm going to say for this tank, I'm going to do a little bit of a mix. I'm probably going to buy a few fish from the importation method, and I'm also going to buy a few fish through shops here in the UK. It's good for me to show you how to import fish, and also how to just simply purchase them from your local aquatic store. And I'm just going to do this just to show you guys at home the different methods, the positives and the negatives. Personally, I would say if you have a stock tank already and you're looking for some nice quality fish, definitely check out the sponsors down below. If you're buying 1, 2, 3 fish at once, it's definitely worth supporting local businesses, supporting our local dealers, because if they weren't around, we wouldn't have anywhere to go to buy our fancy goldfish. We would have to go to the generic pet store, and we would definitely not be able to get anywhere near the quality that we can from our normal fancy goldfish specialist dealers. So I would say, unless you're looking for some super top quality fish and you're prepared to spend 150 to 200 pounds per fish, and you're looking at buying 5 to 10 fish at once, definitely go to your local fancy goldfish specialist or order from a UK supplier, because 9 times out of 10 you're gonna miss all the problems. You're not going to have an unhealthy fish, you're not going to have a fish that has parasites, you're going to get a really nice specimen of a fish. Maybe you will pay slightly more for it, but you lose a lot of the risk and a lot of the stress as well. And if you're not used to fish keeping, if you haven't been fish keeping for too long, this is definitely the way forward, because if you have lots of problems with your imported fish, you need to be on it straight away, treating them, cleaning up any wounds, and knowing exactly what to do when they come in. And a microscope is definitely 100% a piece of essential kit if you are importing fish. So hopefully I have given you some of the pros and some of the cons. To sum up, importing, you will get your fish much cheaper, and it is efficient to buy high quality fish. But I would say if you're not going for that top 5% of fish and you want anything below that, then definitely use your normal supplier, your fancy goldfish specialist. And generally I would generally use those. If I hadn't imported before and I was a little bit new to the fancy goldfish scene, 100% I would use our suppliers, like our links down below, our sponsors down below, Jimmy Goldfish and Star Fisheries. They have an absolutely huge range, both of them. Jimmy Goldfish in the USA and Star Fisheries in the UK has an absolutely huge range of fancy goldfish. And hopefully I will be going to Star Fisheries in the next video. Now that isn't confirmed, but I'm 99% sure in the next video you see, I will be heading off to Star Fisheries. Hopefully we're going to be doing a walk around tour and we may even pick up some fish. So if you've got any questions, leave them down below. If you have any questions about importing that I haven't covered in this video, please leave them down below. If you want to have your tank or setup featured on the channel in our Rate My Tank series or our Tank Tours series, you can put me an email. The email is down in the description, fancygoldfishfanatics@gmail.com. As always, thank you all for watching. Remember to keep those water changes up and happy fish keeping.